For decades, Mauritania's economy has run on a simple extractive model. You mine iron ore and gold out of the desert, load it onto trains, and ship it out as a raw, unrefined commodity. By 2026, that baseline shifts. The Grand Tortue Ameim, or GTA, gas field enters full production, triggering a massive influx of foreign reserves and pushing the country's projected GDP to nearly $12 billion. Mauritania suddenly has the capital to transition from a resource exporter into an industrial power. Yet, right at the southern border with Senegal sits a glaring contradiction. The government spent $352 million to build the deep-water port of NDIAGO. It has a prime location on the Atlantic trade routes, but right now it operates at low efficiency. It is a massive, expensive asset sitting largely dormant. The problem is the traditional maritime toll booth model. If a port relies purely on collecting fees from ships passing through, it is entirely at the mercy of global supply chains. In a volatile Atlantic trade matrix, relying on throughput fees is a high-risk gamble. Maximizing the return on a mega infrastructure project like this requires moving past isolated asset management. A dock only generates its full economic output when it functions as the anchor of a closed-loop urban ecosystem. This requires a specific operational logic: port, industry, city, and people. It operates as an interactive cycle. The port handles the logistics. The industry provides the goods to ship. The city supports the industry with infrastructure. And the people provide the specialized labor. Each layer resolves the bottlenecks of the one before it. Before pouring any concrete, this ecosystem has to be simulated. By using AI-generated content design and digital twin technology, which creates a highly accurate virtual replica of physical assets, planners can generate multidimensional logic models. This allows them to iterate spatial layouts and predict financial outcomes long before physical construction starts. A digital model needs a legal foundation to become reality. In January 2025, Mauritania implemented a revised investment code. This new code explicitly guarantees profit repatriation for foreign companies and simplifies administrative red tape. It strips away the bureaucratic friction that often keeps multinational capital out of emerging markets. You have to de-risk the environment legally and model it digitally. Only then can you attract the scale of foreign investment required to build the physical engineering. Let's look at the physical hardware of the port itself. NDIAGO currently has 160,000 square meters of expansion space and a deep water channel cleared by 300,000 cubic meters of dredging. The raw space is there. The mandatory first step to utilizing that space is water. You cannot run heavy industry or support a workforce without a reliable water supply, which is why building a 1,500 cubic meter per day desalination plant is the initial hardware requirement. Once the site has water, the port needs a primary hardware pivot. With the GTA gas field in stable production, NDIAGO must construct a dedicated energy service terminal designed specifically to handle offshore support vessels. The secondary upgrade targets the ocean's surface. Mauritania produces high-value marine products like octopus and tuna. Building a cold chain center certified by HACCP, an internationally recognized food safety management system, allows the port to process and export these goods directly. This chart illustrates the critical software layer, a smart port digital operation system. By fully dematerializing customs declarations and yard management, physical containers move through the port backed by instant digital clearances, removing days of bureaucratic delay. By coupling specialized hardware for energy and cold chain logistics with frictionless digital workflows, NDIAGO stops being a dormant dock. It becomes a highly competitive Atlantic node capable of processing specialized global trade. The port now has capacity, but it needs a guaranteed volume of goods to move. The solution starts with the Mauritanian government's mandate to retain 20 to 25% of the GTA gas production for domestic use. This map shows how retained gas is monetized. A pipeline routes it into the NDIAGO Special Economic Zone to fuel a new 225 megawatt power plant. This cheap baseload power, combined with regional phosphate, enables a heavy petrochemical and fertilizer complex right next to the port. This industrial capacity extends to the fisheries. Right now, a massive portion of Mauritania's raw catch is shipped to the Canary Islands for processing. By applying Special Economic Zone zero tax incentives, NDIAGO can capture that offshore processing capacity and bring those manufacturing jobs back to the local coast. The long-term anchor for this industrial zone is the Burala field, which holds 80 trillion cubic feet of gas. Connecting this reserve to NDIAGO establishes the infrastructure needed for future production of green ammonia and hydrogen. By retaining raw energy to power high-intensity manufacturing at the waterfront, the port guarantees its export volume, shielding operations from external supply chain shocks. Even with a bustling industrial zone, a deep-water port faces a geographic limit. It cannot function if it lacks a land-based logistical network to distribute those manufactured goods inland. For decades, the Senegal River acted as a hard barrier to southern transport, forcing trade onto slow, inefficient ferry crossings. In December 2026, the completion of the Rosso Bridge permanently removes that bottleneck. This map illustrates the resulting port-to-dry-port hub model. NDIAGO serves as the maritime entry point. Goods move by highway to the city of Rosso, which acts as an inland consolidation center, storing and routing cargo directly to landlocked countries like Mali. But the city of Rosso faces immense pressure. Instability across the Sahel drives steady streams of displaced populations toward the border, straining existing infrastructure. The solution requires aggressive urban planning. The capital generated by the port's industrial zones must be routed directly into Rosso to fund social housing, mobile medical clinics, and designated industrial residential zoning. Proactive infrastructure planning converts a potential border refugee crisis into a demographic asset. It provides the steady labor force needed for the expanding industrial zones. That labor force brings us to the final pillar. Mauritania has abundant raw labor, but it lacks the specific professionals trained to manage modern energy infrastructure and digital smart port systems. To fix this, planners are establishing the West African Marine and Energy Academy directly adjacent to the port. This chart outlines the funding and the goal. Using World Bank loans targeted at human capital, the Academy subsidizes technical training for local workers, driving representation in high-skill roles up to a strict 70% target by 2030. There is a secondary economic challenge. You have to ensure that the massive capital moving through the special economic zone actually reaches the surrounding community, specifically local micro-enterprises and fishing cooperatives. To do this, the zone deploys a blockchain-based registry. Blockchain is a secure, decentralized digital ledger that tracks transactions transparently. Here, it is used to enforce the local content policy, mathematically guaranteeing that local small businesses receive priority when bidding on logistics and supply subcontracts. Securing human capital and hard-coding local business participation is the only reliable defense against capital flight. It ensures the wealth generated by the port actually stabilizes the region. Even with a closed-loop system, systemic risks remain. If global commodity prices drop, the Mauritanian government could lose the revenue required to service the debt from these infrastructure projects. The financial defense strategy relies on a phased construction model. Planners secure baseline cash flow through long-term gas sales and purchase agreements, or SPAs, which lock in buyers for the gas years in advance, ensuring steady revenue regardless of market dips. Simultaneously, there is an acute environmental tension. Expanding offshore gas extraction and heavy maritime traffic directly threatens the sensitive ecosystems that support the region's high-value fisheries. The Ecological Mitigation Plan mandates rigorous environmental and social impact assessments for every new development. Alongside this, a dedicated fisheries sustainability fund compensates traditional operators for disruptions to their catch zones. These steps are not optional. Rigorous environmental and financial risk mitigation are prerequisites for unlocking sovereign wealth investments and multilateral green bond financing. The timeline for NDIAGO is strictly mapped. In 2026, the immediate focus is securing the initial energy tenants for the economic zone and launching international tenders for digital port operations. By 2027 and 2028, the critical desalination infrastructure comes online, providing the water necessary to repatriate the cold chain processing currently outsourced to the Canary Islands. By 2030, NDIAGO reaches its target state. It operates as a 2 million ton capacity smart hub, functioning as the primary liquefaction base for the Burala gas field. NDIAGO proves that the era of the isolated single-function megaproject is over. To survive the modern global economy, infrastructure must be built as an interconnected value ecosystem. By synchronizing domestic energy retention, digital logistics, and targeted human capital, Mauritania is rewriting the economic geography of West Africa.